The bustling marketplace of Zoreth was a cacophony of sounds and colors, alive with the chatter of countless alien species. Jackson moved through the throng with purpose, his tall frame cutting a path through the crowd as he scanned the stalls filled with exotic wares. He had long since abandoned his life as a soldier, now he scavenged for parts and technology that could be sold for credits. As he paused at a stall displaying shimmering crystals that pulsed with energy, Jackson's attention was suddenly drawn to a commotion nearby. A young woman with striking azure skin and silver hair was sprinting through the crowd, her eyes wide with fear. Behind her were three men in dark uniforms, their expressions cold and predatory. Without thinking, Jackson felt his instincts kick in. He had sworn to leave his past behind him, but something about the woman's desperate flight stirred memories of battles fought and lives saved. He pushed through the crowd just as she stumbled into a fruit stand, scattering vibrant alien fruits everywhere. "No! Let me go," she cried out as one of her pursuers grabbed her arm. In an instant, Jackson was upon them. He moved like lightning, his fist connecting with the first attacker's jaw before the others could react. The man crumpled to the ground in a heap. The remaining two turned their weapons on Jackson just as he disarmed one with a swift twist of his wrist. "I suggest you reconsider your career choices," Jackson growled lowly as he tossed the man aside like a rag doll. The last assailant hesitated only for a moment before bolting into the crowd. The woman stared at Jackson in awe and disbelief as she caught her breath. You saved me," she stammered. "Are you all right?" Jackson asked, his voice softer now that the immediate danger had passed. She nodded slowly but then dropped to her knees before him. "Please," she begged, tears glistening in her eyes. "I need your protection. I'll do anything, be your servant if that's what it takes." Jackson frowned at her desperate offer. "Get up," he said firmly but gently. "I don't need a servant." The woman rose shakily to her feet. "Then what can I do? I have nowhere else to go." He sighed heavily, running a hand through his tousled hair. He had spent years trying to live quietly after all that had happened in his past, yet here he was faced with another complication. "What's your name?" he asked finally. "Lyra," she replied softly. "All right then, Lyra," Jackson said after a moment's pause. "You can come with me for now, but not as my servant." Relief washed over Lyra's face as she nodded vigorously. "Thank you. I promise I'll do whatever you need." As they navigated through the marketplace towards Jackson's small apartment on the outskirts of town, he couldn't shake off the feeling that this encounter was going to change everything once again in his life. "Who were those men?" Jackson asked once they were clear of the crowds. Lyra hesitated, glancing around nervously as if expecting them to appear again at any moment. "It's complicated," she said finally. "They're part of a faction trying to overthrow my family." Jackson raised an eyebrow, this was getting more interesting by the minute. "Your family? What do you mean?" Taking a deep breath, Lyra began to explain as they walked briskly toward safety. "I'm not just any ordinary person, I'm a princess from the planet Alicia." Jackson stopped abruptly in front of his apartment door and turned to face her fully. "A princess? What happened?" "There was a coup," Lyra continued, her voice trembling slightly as she recounted the events that had led to her flight from Alicia. "My family is dead or imprisoned, I barely escaped." The weight of her words hung heavy in the air between them as Jackson processed this information. It was one thing to save someone from mercenaries, it was another entirely to be embroiled in intergalactic politics. "So those men were assassins?" he asked cautiously. She nodded solemnly. "They were sent to finish me off." "And you think I can help you?" Jackson questioned skeptically. Lyra looked him straight in the eye with an intensity that surprised him. "You saved me once already, I know you have skills that could help me reclaim my throne." He ran a hand over his face in frustration, this was exactly what he had been trying to avoid, getting involved again, but something about Lyra's determination stirred something deep within him. "If I help you," he said slowly, weighing his words carefully, "it won't be easy." I'm prepared for anything, Lyra replied fiercely. He studied her for a long moment before finally nodding reluctantly. Fine then, we'll start training tomorrow. As Lyra retreated into the small bedroom of his apartment later that night while he took up residence on the couch, Jackson stared out at the sprawling cityscape illuminated by neon lights and distant stars beyond it all, wondering what kind of trouble he had just invited into his life once again. With thoughts swirling in his mind about battles past and futures uncertain ahead of them both, Jackson knew one thing for certain: nothing would ever be simple again after tonight's encounter with Lyra Navari, the alien princess who had changed everything with just one plea for him. The sun rose over the horizon of Zoreth, casting a warm glow through the small apartment where Jackson and Lyra were staying. The air was thick with anticipation as Jackson prepared for their first day of training. He had spent years honing his skills, but now he would be passing that knowledge on to someone else, a task that both excited and unnerved him. Time to begin your training, Jackson said, his voice steady and commanding as he tossed Lyra a set of plain, durable clothes. She blinked at him, still bleary-eyed from sleep. Training, Lyra echoed, her voice tinged with disbelief. You mean now? Yes, now, Jackson replied, crossing his arms. Get changed. We leave in 5 minutes. Lyra hurried to change, her heart racing at the thought of what lay ahead. She had no idea what to expect from Jackson's training regimen, but she was determined to prove herself. When she emerged from the bedroom, dressed in the sturdy clothes that suited her new role, Jackson was already waiting by the door. Follow me, he instructed, leading her out into the bustling streets of Zoreth. They moved through the crowd, Lyra's mind racing with thoughts of her family and the dangers that awaited them. She couldn't afford to fail, not when so much was at stake. After a short walk, they arrived at a secluded training ground on the outskirts of the city. It was a barren area surrounded by rocky outcrops, far removed from the noise and chaos of the marketplace. Jackson turned to face Lyra, his expression serious. First lesson, awareness, he said, his voice low and firm. You need to be constantly alert to your surroundings. Without warning, he hurled a small stone at her. Lyra yelped as it struck her arm, surprised by the suddenness of his action. Hey! What was that for? She protested, rubbing her arm where the stone had hit. If that had been a blaster bolt, you'd be dead, Jackson replied bluntly. Again. This time try to dodge. Lyra took a deep breath and focused on him as he prepared to throw another stone. This time, she managed to sidestep just in time, feeling the rush of air as it flew past her. A smile broke across her face, she could do this. Good, Jackson said, nodding approvingly. Now we'll work on your reflexes. For the next hour, he pushed her through a series of exercises designed to test her agility and speed. They ran drills that involved dodging objects he threw at her while also practicing basic combat stances. As they took a brief water break under the harsh sun, Lyra wiped sweat from her brow and looked up at Jackson with curiosity burning in her eyes. How did you become so skilled? She asked between breaths. Jackson's expression hardened momentarily before he answered. That's not important right now, he said curtly. Focus on your own training. But Lyra wasn't deterred, she pressed on with questions as they resumed their exercises. But you must have had some kind of training yourself. How did you learn all this? He shot her a sidelong glance but remained silent for a moment longer before finally relenting. Let's just say I've had my share of experience in tough situations. Over the next few days, Jackson pushed Lyra harder than she thought possible. Every morning began before dawn with grueling physical training, running laps around their secluded area and practicing evasive maneuvers until exhaustion set in. Despite her aching muscles and fatigue, Lyra refused to give up. Each day brought new challenges that tested not only her physical abilities but also her mental fortitude. Jackson taught her how to wield various weapons, blasters and knives alike, and emphasized the importance of strategy in combat scenarios. One evening after an especially demanding day of training, they sat together in their safe house sharing a simple meal made from synthesized protein packs. Lyra looked across the table at Jackson, who seemed lost in thought. "Jackson," she began hesitantly, "I'm grateful for everything you're doing for me, but why are you helping me?" He paused for a long moment before finally meeting her gaze. "Because sometimes doing the right thing is more important than staying hidden," he replied quietly. Lyra's eyes widened in surprise at his admission. "Hidden? What do you mean?" Jackson sighed heavily as if weighing his words carefully. "Let's just say I have my reasons for avoiding attention," he said slowly. "Seeing you in trouble reminded me of who I used to be." "Who were you?" Lyra pressed gently. He looked away then back at her with an intensity that made her heart race. "Someone who made a difference, someone who fought for justice no matter the cost." For a brief moment, an unspoken connection formed between them, a bond forged through shared struggles and aspirations for something greater than themselves. But just as quickly as it appeared, Jackson pulled back emotionally. "We should rest," he said gruffly, standing up abruptly. "Tomorrow we start planning our journey back to Alicia." As Lyra retreated to bed that night, she couldn't shake off the feeling that there was more to Jackson than met the eye, an untold story buried beneath layers of pain and responsibility. The next morning brought renewed energy as they laid out plans for their journey back home. Sitting at their makeshift table filled with star charts and navigation data, Lyra felt a sense of purpose swelling within her. "Alicia is here," she pointed out on one particular chart showing their home system located near several trade routes but also close enough to pirate-infested areas that could pose serious threats during their travel. Jackson nodded thoughtfully as he examined their options closely. It wouldn't be easy navigating through those sectors without running into trouble along the way. "We'll need a ship," Lyra suggested, suddenly breaking into his thoughts. "Something fast and well-armed," she added firmly. A flicker of amusement crossed Jackson's face, a rare sight, and he nodded slowly in agreement. "I might have just the thing." With that declaration hanging in the air between them like an unspoken promise of adventure ahead, Jackson led Lyra toward a secure hangar on the outskirts of Zorith where an impressive vessel awaited them, sleek lines glimmering under sunlight while its powerful engines hummed softly with potential energy ready for launch. When they reached it together, Lyra gasped in awe at its beauty. It was unlike anything she had ever seen before, a ship built for speed and agility with advanced technology embedded throughout its design. "What is it?" she breathed reverently, circling around it like an artist admiring their masterpiece. "The Shadow Blade," Jackson replied, proudly standing beside it now as if sharing an intimate secret only meant for those who dared venture into unknown territories beyond safety nets provided by society itself, the kind of ship designed not just for travel but also survival against all odds stacked against them both. "This is really happening, isn't it?" Lyra thought excitedly, glancing back up at him. Determination coursed through her veins like fire, igniting hope once more within reach after so much loss suffered already along this journey together toward reclaiming what belonged rightfully hers, the throne taken away unjustly by those who sought power over compassion instead. "We're going to take back my world," she declared confidently, meeting his gaze head-on without flinching even slightly despite fears lurking beneath surface-level doubts trying desperately clawing their way forward, threatening confidence built up over time spent training side by side fighting against adversity together. Jackson nodded solemnly, acknowledging weight behind those words spoken aloud, now echoing throughout vast expanse surrounding them, both filled with possibilities yet unseen, waiting patiently just beyond horizon line separating past from future, ahead filled with challenges yet untold, waiting patiently, still lingering close enough, reminding them both why they embarked upon this path chosen together. As they boarded Shadow Blade, Lyra felt surge adrenaline coursing through veins, igniting excitement mixed trepidation, knowing full well dangers lay ahead yet refusing let fear dictate choices made moving forward. With engines roaring alive beneath command given by skilled hands, guiding vessel toward destiny awaiting patiently beyond, stars twinkling brightly overhead illuminating path chosen together toward reclaiming rightful place among those once lost forever. The Shadow Blade glided smoothly through the vastness of space, its sleek design cutting through the darkness like a knife. Jackson sat at the controls, his focus unwavering as he navigated the ship toward their destination. Beside him, Lyra was still processing the enormity of their mission. They were headed to Alicia, her home planet, to reclaim her throne from those who had usurped it. "How long until we reach the Pyxis Nebula?" Lyra asked, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. "About 6 hours," Jackson replied, his eyes flicking between the navigational displays. "It's the most dangerous part of our journey, a haven for pirates and outlaws." "We'll make it through," Lyra said, determination etched on her face. "We have to." Just as she spoke, the ship's proximity alarm blared to life, cutting through the tension like a knife. Jackson's fingers flew over the controls as he brought up a tactical display. "Incoming vessels," he growled. 3, no, 4 of them. Definitely not friendly." Lyra leaned forward, her heart racing as she studied the screen. "Pirates. What do we do?" "Hang on," Jackson said, his voice calm but urgent. He initiated evasive maneuvers, sending the shadow blade into a series of sharp rolls and dives. The ship responded instantly, twisting and rolling with an agility that belied its size. The comm system crackled to life, and a gruff voice filled the cockpit. "Unidentified vessel, this is Captain Dax of the Blood Reavers. Power down and prepare to be boarded or we'll blast you to atoms." "Blood Reavers," Lyra echoed, her eyes wide with fear. She had heard tales of this notorious pirate group, brutal and ruthless in their pursuit of wealth. "Stay sharp," Jackson instructed, his expression hardening as he plotted their course through the nebula. "They'll try to flank us." As he engaged the ship's weapons systems, Lyra felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through her veins. She had trained hard over the past few days, now it was time to put that training to use. "What can I do?" she asked, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Man the weapons station," Jackson directed without hesitation. "You'll need to be ready." Lyra nodded and quickly moved to the weapons console at the back of the cockpit. She had practiced using blasters during their training sessions but had never been in a real combat situation before. As she activated the targeting systems, she felt a mix of excitement and fear. "They're gaining on us," Jackson warned as he deftly maneuvered the ship around an asteroid field. "Lock on," Lyra shouted, her fingers dancing over the controls as she targeted one of the pursuing ships. "I'm ready." "Fire," Jackson commanded. The shadow blade shuddered as Lyra unleashed a volley of energy blasts toward one of the pirate ships. She watched with bated breath as her shot struck true, causing an explosion that lit up the dark expanse of space. "Yes. I hit one," Lyra exclaimed, exhilaration flooding her senses. But there was no time for celebration, Jackson's voice cut through her excitement. "Focus. They're regrouping for another attack." Lyra quickly returned to her station, locking onto another target as Jackson continued to weave through asteroids and debris. They were outnumbered but not outmatched, together they made a formidable team. The remaining pirate ships closed in on them, weapons primed and ready to fire. Jackson's hands moved with precision as he executed a sharp turn that sent them barreling toward an opening in the asteroid field. "Keep firing," he shouted as they dodged incoming fire from one of the pursuing vessels. Lyra unleashed another barrage of shots, this time hitting 2 ships simultaneously. Explosions erupted behind them as debris scattered across space. "Good job," Jackson praised without taking his eyes off their path ahead. "But we need to break free from this cluster." As they navigated deeper into the nebula, visibility decreased dramatically due to swirling clouds of gas and dust. Jackson relied on his instincts and enhanced senses to guide them safely through while Lyra kept firing at any pirate ship that dared follow too closely. One by one, they began to lose their pursuers until only Captain Dax remained. His ship was larger and more heavily armed than any other in their fleet. "This one's not backing down," Jackson muttered under his breath as he adjusted their trajectory for a tighter escape route. "What's our plan?" Lyra asked urgently. "We need to outsmart him," Jackson replied with a glint in his eye. Let him think he has us cornered. With that strategy in mind, Jackson led them into a narrow passage between two massive asteroids that loomed ominously in front of them, an area where larger ships would struggle to maneuver effectively. He'll follow us in, Lyra said with realization dawning upon her as they entered the tight corridor. Exactly, Jackson confirmed with a nod. And when he does? The shadow blade shot forward into the darkness between the asteroids while Captain Dax's ship followed closely behind, too close for comfort. As soon as they were deep enough into the passageway where visibility was almost non-existent, Jackson slammed on his brakes, causing their ship to come to an abrupt halt just before colliding with an asteroid. The Blood Reaver's vessel wasn't so lucky. It barreled forward into space without any chance of stopping, crashing violently against one of those massive rocks. The sound echoed throughout space like thunder rumbling against distant mountains, a beautiful symphony marking their victory. Lyra couldn't help but cheer at their success. We did it. We actually did it. Jackson allowed himself a rare smile, a flicker of pride shining through before quickly returning back into focus again. They weren't out of danger yet. Stay alert, he reminded her as he plotted their next course away from danger zones within Pyxis Nebula towards Alicia itself. Their ultimate destination awaited just beyond those stars twinkling brightly overhead, illuminating path chosen together. As they emerged from Pyxis Nebula unscathed, the adrenaline began to wear off, leaving behind exhaustion mingled with exhilaration coursing through both their veins, now bonded by shared experience forged under fire. With renewed determination fueling every heartbeat within them both, Jackson glanced over at Lyra, who was still catching her breath after such intense moments spent fighting side by side against overwhelming odds stacked against them both. He felt something shift between them, a connection deeper than mere allies embarking upon mission together. It felt like family forged amidst chaos surrounding them both. As hours passed during flight towards Alicia, their conversations flowed freely, ranging from light-hearted banter about favorite foods back home, to serious discussions about what awaited them once they arrived at destination, finally drawing closer each moment spent together aboard Shadow Blade, bringing forth hope alive once more, igniting flames burning brightly within hearts yearning for justice, reclaiming rightful place among those lost forevermore. When they finally entered Elysian orbit, the sight took Lyra's breath away. Lush green landscapes dotted with shimmering lakes beneath vibrant blue skies filled with hope, beckoning warmly, invitingly towards future yet unwritten, waiting patiently just beyond horizon line, separating past from present, filled with possibilities yet unseen, lingering close enough, reminding them both why embarked upon this path chosen together. With resolve set firmly upon reclaiming throne taken away unjustly by those who sought power over compassion instead, the Shadow Blade soared gracefully above familiar terrain now visible below, revealing beauty long forgotten amidst struggles faced along journey leading here to. The Shadow Blade hurtled through the darkness of space, the tension in the cockpit palpable as Jackson and Lyra braced for the impending confrontation with Captain Dax and his crew of Blood Reavers. The warning from Dax echoed in their ears, a grim reminder of the danger they faced. Lyra's heart raced as she glanced at Jackson, who was focused on the controls, his jaw set in determination. We can't let them board us, Lyra said, her voice steady despite the fear bubbling beneath the surface. What's our plan? We'll use the ship's speed to our advantage, Jackson replied, his fingers deftly adjusting their course. We need to outmaneuver them and get to open space. Once we're clear, we can jump to hyperspace. And if they catch us, Lyra asked, her brow furrowing with concern. Then we fight, Jackson said simply, his tone leaving no room for doubt. The proximity alarm blared again, indicating that the pirates were closing in. Lyra felt a surge of adrenaline as she took her position at the weapons console. I'm ready, she said, her fingers hovering over the controls. Hold your fire until I give the command, Jackson instructed, his eyes locked on the tactical display. As they navigated through a field of asteroids, Lyra could see the pirate ships on their sensors, flanking them from both sides. She could almost feel the weight of their intent. These were not just criminals, they were predators hunting their prey. They're trying to box us in, Jackson warned. Get ready to fire on my mark. Lyra's heart pounded in her chest as she focused on one of the approaching ships. It was larger than theirs but slower, lumbering through the debris field. She could see armed pirates moving about on its deck, preparing for an assault. "Mark," Jackson shouted. Lyra squeezed the trigger, unleashing a volley of energy blasts toward the nearest pirate ship. Her shot struck true, hitting their target and causing an explosion that lit up space like a supernova. Cheers erupted from Lyra as she watched one of their attackers disintegrate. "Good shot," Jackson praised, but there was no time to celebrate. Another pirate ship was already closing in. They maneuvered sharply to avoid incoming fire, but one blast grazed the Shadow Blade's hull, sending vibrations through the ship. Alarms blared as warning lights flashed red across the control panel. "Shields holding at 80%, Jackson reported, his voice steady despite the chaos. "We need to get out of here," Lyra shouted, her fingers flying over the controls as she targeted another pirate vessel. "There are too many of them." "Stay focused," Jackson snapped back, his eyes narrowed in concentration. "We can't let panic take over." Just then, an explosion rocked the ship as another blast struck them squarely. Lyra stumbled against her console but quickly regained her footing. "I'm fine," she called out, determination fueling her resolve. "Set a course for open space," Jackson commanded as he pulled hard on the controls to evade another incoming shot. He could feel his heart racing. This was what he had trained for, this was where he thrived. But just as they seemed to gain an advantage, Captain Dax's voice crackled over their comm system once more. "You think you can escape so easily? You'll regret crossing paths with me." The pirate captain's ship moved into position behind them, and Lyra felt a chill run down her spine as she realized they were being pursued relentlessly. "He's not giving up," she said grimly. "What do we do?" "We're going to have to make a stand," Jackson replied with a fierce glint in his eye. "Prepare for close combat." Lyra swallowed hard but nodded resolutely. She had trained for this moment, now it was time to put those lessons into action. As they prepared for battle, Jackson activated the ship's defensive systems and initiated a series of evasive maneuvers designed to throw off their pursuers' targeting systems. Lyra focused intently on her weapons console, waiting for just the right moment to strike. The Blood Reaver's ship closed in behind them like a predator stalking its prey. Lyra could see figures moving about on its deck, pirates preparing for boarding or firing upon them at close range. "Now," Jackson shouted suddenly, pulling hard on the controls and spinning the Shadow Blade around to face their pursuers head-on. Lyra unleashed another series of energy blasts toward Captain Dax's ship just as it attempted to flank them. Explosions erupted around them as chaos reigned supreme in space. The two ships danced dangerously close together amidst debris from previous battles fought nearby. But then something unexpected happened. A sudden jolt rocked their vessel violently, throwing both of them against their harnesses. "What was that?" Lyra gasped breathlessly, trying desperately regain composure while scanning displays frantically looking for answers. Jackson cursed under his breath as he struggled with control panels that flickered ominously before him, his jaw clenched tightly against frustration mounting within him. "It's an energy dampener. They've hit us with something." The realization hit Lyra like a punch to gut. The Blood Reavers had come prepared. "They're boarding us," she shouted, instinctively reaching for blasters stored nearby, preparing herself mentally for fight ahead, knowing full well what awaited them both. Just then, crash. Heavy footsteps echoed through corridors outside cockpit doors, rattling ominously, signaling imminent attack, about break through barriers separating enemies from prey. "Get ready," Jackson barked, gripping controls firmly while glancing back towards her, determined gaze filled with fierce resolve, igniting flames burning brightly within hearts yearning justice, reclaiming rightful place among those lost forevermore. The door burst open, revealing a group of heavily armed pirates charging into cockpit, weapons raised ready, engage. Without hesitation, Lyra fired first shot, striking nearest attacker squarely, sending him sprawling backward, crashing against wall lifelessly before collapsing onto floor. But there were too many. more followed, pouring through doorway like floodwaters, overwhelming defenses set up around them both. "Fall back," Jackson ordered, urgently, pulling Lyra towards rear exit leading deeper into ship where they might find refuge against overwhelming odds stacked against them now, threatening lives held dear. As they retreated deeper into Shadow Blade, Lyra felt adrenaline coursing through veins, mingling fear, excitement, knowing full well stakes raised higher than ever before. They reached an armory filled with various weapons and gear left behind from previous missions fought long ago. Jackson quickly began arming himself, grabbing blasters while motioning towards Lyra, who hesitated momentarily, unsure how best contribute amidst chaos unfolding around them. "Take what you need," he urged firmly, meeting her gaze head-on without flinching even slightly despite fears lurking beneath surface-level doubts, trying desperately, clawing way forward, threatening confidence built up over time spent training side by side, fighting against adversity together. With renewed determination fueling every heartbeat within them both, Lyra grabbed two blasters, feeling surge adrenaline coursing through veins, igniting excitement mixed trepidation, knowing full well dangers lay ahead yet refusing let fear dictate choices made moving forward. Together they prepared themselves, facing inevitable confrontation awaiting just beyond doors separating allies from enemies lurking close enough, reminding them why embarked upon path chosen together. With weapons primed and hearts racing, they exchanged one last glance filled with unspoken understanding before pushing through door leading back into cockpit where battle raged fiercely surrounding them, both engulfed amidst chaos swirling around like storm threatening consume everything held. The Shadow Blade surged through the void of space, its engines roaring with power as Jackson and Lyra prepared for the inevitable confrontation with Captain Dax and his crew. The tension in the cockpit was palpable, a heavy weight pressing down on both of them as they navigated the treacherous territory of the Pyxis Nebula. Lyra's heart raced, not just from the adrenaline of their flight but from the knowledge that they were nearing Alicia, her home planet, and the site of her family's tragic downfall. "We need to stay sharp," Jackson said, his voice steady as he monitored the readings on the tactical display. "Dax won't back down easily." "I know," Lyra replied, her resolve hardening. "But we can't let him stop us. My people are counting on me." "And on us," Jackson corrected, casting her a sidelong glance. "We're in this together." As they approached Alicia's orbit, Lyra felt a mix of fear and anticipation. She had trained hard for this moment, but nothing could prepare her for the emotional weight of returning to her home planet, especially under such dire circumstances. "There it is," Jackson said, pointing toward a vibrant blue-green planet that glimmered like a jewel against the backdrop of space. Lyra's breath caught in her throat as memories flooded back, of laughter, warmth, and love that now felt like a lifetime ago. "It's beautiful," she whispered, her eyes misting over. "We'll make it beautiful again," Jackson promised, his tone fierce with determination. But before they could fully embrace their mission, an alarm blared through the cockpit, the proximity warning flashing red as multiple ships appeared on their sensors. "Dax's fleet," Jackson growled, his fingers flying over the controls as he prepared for evasive maneuvers. "He's found us." Lyra gripped her seat tightly as she watched the tactical display light up with enemy vessels closing in rapidly. "How many?" "6 ships," Jackson replied grimly. "He's not taking any chances." "We can't let them board us," Lyra said, her voice steady despite the fear bubbling beneath the surface. "What's our plan?" "We'll have to fight our way through," Jackson said decisively. "I'll handle navigation, you focus on targeting and firing." As he maneuvered the Shadow Blade into a defensive position, Lyra activated the weapon systems and began locking onto their targets. Adrenaline surged through her veins as she prepared for battle. "Incoming fire," Jackson shouted as he executed a sharp turn to avoid a barrage of energy blasts from one of the pirate ships. "Return fire," Lyra commanded, squeezing the trigger as she unleashed a volley of energy blasts toward their attackers. Explosions erupted in space as her shots found their marks, sending debris scattering across the void. "Good hit," Jackson called out, his voice filled with excitement. But there was no time to celebrate, more enemy ships were closing in. As they fought against overwhelming odds, Lyra felt a sense of purpose driving her forward. She was no longer just a princess, she was a warrior fighting for her people and reclaiming her rightful place as their leader. "We need to break through their formation," Jackson urged, pulling hard on the controls to maneuver around an asteroid field that loomed ahead. Lyra targeted another ship that was attempting to flank them and fired again. This time, her shot struck true, causing another explosion that lit up the darkness of space. But just as they seemed to gain an advantage, one of Dax's ships managed to get close enough to unleash a devastating attack. Energy blasts rained down on them, shaking the shadow blade violently. "Shields holding at 50%, Jackson shouted over the din of alarms blaring throughout the cockpit. "We can't let them take us down," Lyra yelled back, determination surging within her as she prepared for another round of fire. Just then, Captain Dax's voice crackled over their comm system again, a sinister laugh echoing through their speakers. "You think you can escape me? I will enjoy watching you burn." Lyra clenched her fists in frustration. This man was ruthless and would stop at nothing to see them fail. "We have to finish this now," she declared fiercely. With renewed resolve, Jackson executed a daring maneuver that sent them barreling toward one of Dax's ships head-on. "Hold on," he shouted as he pulled back on the controls at the last moment, sending them careening past their enemy while Lyra fired at point-blank range. The energy blasts tore through the hull of Dax's ship, causing it to shudder violently before erupting into flames. Cheers erupted from both Lyra and Jackson as they narrowly escaped destruction. But Captain Dax was not finished yet, his remaining ships regrouped quickly and began closing in once more. "They're coming back," Lyra warned urgently. "I know," Jackson replied grimly. "But we've got one last trick up our sleeves." He activated a hidden feature on the Shadow Blade, a cloaking device that would allow them to temporarily disappear from enemy sensors. "Get ready," he instructed. "We're going dark." As they activated the cloaking system, Lyra felt a rush of exhilaration wash over her. They were about to become ghosts in this battle, a fleeting shadow moving unseen among their enemies. The pirate ships swept past them without realizing what had happened. Lyra held her breath as she watched from behind their cloaked shield, waiting for just the right moment to strike again. When they were positioned perfectly behind one of Dax's ships, Jackson deactivated the cloaking device and shouted, "Now!" Lyra unleashed everything she had left. Energy blasts rained down upon their unsuspecting target with ferocity unmatched, sending shockwaves rippling through space. The ship exploded spectacularly, the force sending debris scattering across vast expanse surrounding them, both illuminating darkness around like fireworks exploding brightly against night sky. "Yes! We did it!" Lyra cheered breathlessly, feeling adrenaline coursing through veins, igniting excitement mixed trepidation, knowing full well dangers still lay ahead, yet refusing let fear dictate choices made moving forward. But just then, a warning flashed across their screens indicating another ship had locked onto them. "They're targeting us," Jackson shouted urgently, pulling hard on controls, trying desperately evade incoming fire. Lyra braced herself for impact, but instead heard an explosion erupt nearby, followed by silence enveloping everything around them both. When dust settled, their screens flickered, revealing Captain Dax's ship now crippled, drifting aimlessly through space. "What just happened?" Lyra gasped, staring at screen incredulously, unable to comprehend reality unfolding before eyes. Jackson looked equally stunned before realization dawned upon him. "It seems someone else has joined our fight." Moments later, a new ship emerged from behind an asteroid, the insignia emblazoned across its hull unmistakable, Elysian Royal Fleet. The sight filled Lyra with hope. "They've come to help us." As Elysian forces engaged what remained of Captain Dax's fleet, Lyra felt tears prickling at corners, eyes overwhelmed by emotions swirling inside, heart-filled joy, relief knowing finally allies stood beside, ready to reclaim what belonged rightfully hers. As battle raged around them, the Shadow Blade remained safely positioned behind Elysian forces, watching chaos unfold, knowing soon justice would be served against those who dared threaten lives held dear. After what felt like hours, the last pirate ship fell silent, drifting lifelessly amidst stars surrounding them both, leaving only echoes memories behind, reminding everyone present why fought so fiercely today, reclaiming freedom lost long ago. With victory secured, the Elysian fleet turned toward Shadow Blade, signaling acknowledgement, gratitude towards those who fought bravely alongside them during darkest hour, faced together, united front against tyranny, threatening lives once cherished dearly, now restored, hope renewed, promise, brighter future ahead, waiting patiently just beyond horizon line, separating past present, filled possibilities yet unseen, lingering close enough, reminding everyone why embarked upon path chosen together. As Elysian forces boarded Shadow Blade, welcoming both Jackson and Lyra back home, she felt warmth enveloping heart, knowing finally reunited with family, friends once lost forevermore, now standing tall, ready face whatever challenges lay ahead, reclaiming rightful place among those lost forever.